welcome to Blonde Cards and Crafts. Let's make something together. Hello crafters, before we start making our cards with the Love from Lizi August kit, I want to show you we get these foam pads and we're going to be using them with the decoupage sheets. So you see here with our sheets, each image is got a number on it. So you start with B1 and then you move to B2, B3, B4, B5, etc. And there are a couple of B2s and B4s because there's the little book and the butterfly. Now because these are like die cuts, you can remove the little bits where they're in the sheet with a scissors, and I like to use my Fiskars soft grip scissors, or you can use an emery board, and this one that I have is strictly for my paper crafting. So I like to file those little bits off, and you can do that as you go along, or you can pop out all the pieces and then file them all off, or trim them all off and then put them all together. So this one here, this is B2. There is a frame, and then you have a little girl, and the piece between the frame and the little girl, that's just a void piece. It's to keep them all together. Now I wasn't too careful taking off the frame because I'm not going to use that. I want to take off the little girl that's inside of it. Now I find the majority of time with decoupage pieces, they pop out no problem. I did find with one or two of these, they just needed a little bit of help along the way, so I was snipping them out with my scissors. But so I have B1 there, B2 done. There's a little book and butterfly that are B2s as well. Then the next one is B3, and she doesn't have any legs on her. And then the next one before, she has less of her body on her. So as you go along, you take these pieces out, we add our very thin foam tape to the back of them, and we layer them up one on top of the other. So we're building up an image that has depth. And you know, you can have, like with this one, the little girl, she has 5 layers to her. But you can just put 2 layers on, or 3 or 4, or go with the 5, depending on whether you're putting it in a regular envelope or a box envelope, or you're going to hand your card to someone. So you can see here, I'm just trimming off all the little bits, filing off some of them, trimming off others, and adding the foam to the back of them. And then, like I said, once I have them all together, then I'll have a completed piece. So I'm delighted with this little gorgeous girl. I'm going to use this one in card 3. So I hope you will enjoy the card that I'm going to make using her. But first, let's have a look at the dies that come in the kit. So these are the dies. With the kit we get 3. We get the seahorse, the seashell and the whale. The other 2, the anchor and the steering wheel, I actually got them as part of the add-ons. So I'm going to take the little seahorse and I'm going to take the whale, and I'm going to die cut those out because I want to show you how I got these lovely colouring on my die cuts. I didn't use alcohol markers or Zig watercolor markers or oil pencils. I just used my inks and blending brushes. I have my big shot machine here, and I have my chrome plate below, and I have a regular clear plastic plate then that goes on top of that. Now you can tape down your dies to your cardstock. I like to live dangerously and sometimes I don't. So I have my little seahorse and my whale here, and when you punch them out, there's little bits and pieces that come out of them, so you won't actually need them. So that's the whale done there, and I'll pop out all the little bits, and then we have our seahorse here. So what I like to do, I put my dies back on my magnetic strip before I move on, that way I don't lose them. I'm going to place these down on a piece of computer paper, or if you have a laminated sheet you can use that. And I'm going to take some inks that I have in my stash and my blending brushes. So the inks I'm using are the Paper Craft Society inks, but you can use Distress Oxides or Distress inks, whatever you like yourself. So I've zoomed in now, you can see I've taken a light blue and I'm gently going around the outside of my whale using this the ink and blending it on. Now I'm not being too precious about it because most of the times when your inks dry, they do kind of even out. But if you go in with a loaded brush, you'll kind of get a heavy amount at first. So it's all about approaching the die cut gently and, you know, adding pressure as you're blending, as you're rotating the brush. So I'm adding the blue on there, and I'm just, you know, kind of, I'm not going off any image in front of me. I know that most whales are blue or a grey blue. And you know what? This isn't a replica of a whale, so I kind of feel I can do whatever color I like. I've taken a darker blue here now, and I'm going to go around the edge with this stronger color. And I'm going to go around his water spout there with the stronger color as well. And then as the ink kind of comes off the brush, I'll kind of blend into the lighter blue. So I'm just blending away there nicely, adding the bit of color, putting a bit of pressure where I wanted a little darker and reducing the pressure where I wanted a little lighter. Now for the mouth and belly area, I'm going to go with a grey colour for the bottom there. So I'll take my grey blending brush and I'll add some grey in there. Now you can tap off the brush and then bring it to your die cut if you want to check on how strong or dark your colour is, or you can go straight in. It's up to yourself. Be careful around the mouth area there because we have a very thin, fine little strip of paper you know, between the gaps. So gently, gently does it. So I'll add the bit of grey on that. And isn't this looking great? And I have to say, I'm looking at the card. I have the card, the finished card that I use, the whale. Actually, there's two whales, this one and the one I've already done, which is on the top right hand corner. And I've used them on a shaker card. And I have to say, I love them and they look great, you know, especially if you're not great at coloring, you know, or you don't have confidence. You know, I've got the Brutfunner oil pencils and I've got the Sig markers and the Spectrum alcohol markers, and when I do color in they're fine, you know, they look good. I do shading and whatnot, but this is so much quicker and so much easier, and that's our two whales there. Aren't they great? So let's go ahead now and do our little seahorse. So I've sped this up a little bit now. It's more or less the same as what we did for the whale. I've used a green here and I've got a little pokey tool. You can use that to hold your seahorse in place. You can use your finger. If you don't want to get inks on it, you can use a little piece of paper. I dipped my yellow brush into the green ink, so I was just wiping it off on a microfiber cloth, and then I was ready to go and dip it back into the yellow ink. And you can use the brushes, you know, if you dip them into the wrong ink color, then just give them a spray with a little bit of water and wipe them off. So there's our two little seahorses, and we've used the ink blending, and I will add little white dots around the top of the head and the back area and add a little bit of Spectrum Noir to embellish them. I've also got the seashell here. When you die cut this out, you get the frame, all the little bits fall out. You can paper piece it, but what I did was I stuck the shell frame onto a piece of holographic pink cardstock, and then I just fussy cut around it. That way I've all one piece. It's the same shape as the shell, and I didn't have to paper piece so much quicker. For the little pearl inside, I die cut a little piece in cream, then I added some Spectrum Noir onto that and some glossy accents then on top of that, and that gives us this fabulous pearly, you know, I just thought the shell should be really cool. So you can see there I have the wheel for a boat and I have the anchor done in the greys and the browns, and I think that looks great. So I hope this helps you with colouring in your die cuts. So now let's go ahead and get on with our 10 cards. So card 1 is an A2 American size card, and for this card you'll need a piece of 8.5 by 5.5, and I've scored it at 4 1/4, and that'll give us our 4 1/4 by 5.5 card base. I'm burnishing the fold on that to make sure that it sits nicely. On top of that then I will add this piece of decoupage with our lovely little girl. I've got 3 layers here. I've added some glossy accents to her bow on her hair and on her body, as well as the little crab. And I'm going to put that on the front of our card. Isn't she so pretty? I'm delighted with how she turned out, and I love that little crab. So next I've done some pattern paper using the 2 little fish stamps that come in the stamp set. So these are the 2 little fish, and I thought they're so cool. I'm going to just stamp them there and have them as our pattern paper. I've measured up 1.5 inches from the bottom left, and then from the top right I've measured down 1 inch, and you could see the measurements. I had them wrote there on the back of the card. So if you measure down from the top on the right 1 inch and up from the bottom on the left 1.5 inches, I've drawn a pencil line and I'm going to cut that off there. The bottom one then I'm going to put onto the front of the card. I'm going to add some peel offs, one peel off between the pattern paper and the card base, and I think that will pick up the blue then, these beautiful blue pinstripe peel offs that we got in our kit. Now I've added the peel off to my panel. I'm going to glue that down to my card base, and I'm using my Collal glue, whatever wet glue or tape runner or double-sided tape that you use in the making of your cards. You fire away with that. I'll use the Collal. So once that's down, then I can add my decoupage piece, and again I'm just going to glue that down into place. And you can see there my panel has a nice little border on the 3 sides. It doesn't fill the whole of the card base, but you can have it the full size of the card base if you like. With that in place, then all I need to do is stamp a sentiment on the front, and I've used one from my stash. It says "Long time no see." I'm going to embellish the inside. I'm going to take 2 of the little fish that we used on our pattern paper at the front, and I'm going to stamp them inside the card. I'll stamp them down in the bottom right hand corner, and then we have plenty of room inside the card for a nice message. So that's it, card number 1 done. You'll see before each new card I'll pop the measurements on the screen. 2 is a Dutch Door Pop-up card. I have this card on my channel, so if you'd like to go through it slower, please look in the description down below and I'll have links. This piece of cardstock measures 8 by 6. I've scored it at 2. I have these 2 panels. They measure 1 inch by 6.5. I've scored it down the middle at 1/2. And then I've come down 1 inch on the top right and down 1 inch on the top left, and I've put a little mark on each side. We're going to score through them then, and I'll take out my scoreboard and I'll show you how then we make those. So with this piece I have my 2 little marks there. I have a line drawn through my scoreboard to help me out. I'm going to put the top left hand corner into the little notch there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to score down from the top to the little 1 inch mark we made at the side. Then I'm going to turn it around, and again I'll put the top right hand corner into our little mark, our notch there, and I will score down to our 1 inch mark that we put on the left hand side. So I'll score straight through that. And now we'll have this X scored in our card. You can see it here, and we have our score line right down through the middle. You can see here on the left I have a notch cut out at the top of mine on this one, so we're going to do that on our one that we've done here. So we're going to come from this mark here on the right up to the middle where our score lines are an X, and straight up then to the top in the middle. So I'm going to use my little fussy cutting scissors to cut this out, and I want to cut the score line away so I have a nice clean cut. So I'll cut the angle up to the middle of our X, I'll rotate it around and cut down to meet our cut line, just like that. Lovely. So these 2 are going to hold our panel. You can see there the little piece I've cut away. One will go to the right and one will go to the left, and I have these the wrong way round. They should actually be on the other side. So the one in my hand will go on the left hand side of our panel, and the one on the scoreboard will go on the right hand side of our panel. So I'm going to fold and burnish all our score lines, and you want to do this for all the score lines both ways. So burnish it on one side, then fold it over and burnish on the other, and do that with all the score lines we have put into these. So I'm going to speed up now, and I'm going to burnish all those score lines because you don't need to watch me doing that. And we have quite a few cards to get through, and I'm trying to keep it to under an hour for this video. So excuse me if I, edit out some bits. I kind of feel the bits that you don't really need to see, I've edited out. So I have my two door panels here. They're 2.5 by 5.5, and I have 4 pieces of pattern paper. They're 2.25 by 5.25. I've put 2 of the pattern paper on one side. These 2 I'll attach later because we need to attach our little side pieces to that, and I'll be covering up one of them with the pattern paper, so we'll glue them all together later. This piece will go on the top flap. It's 5.75 by 1.75, and then this piece is going to be like a top fold inside card. It's 6.5 by 5. I've scored it at a half on the long side, and that little 1/2 inch tab will allow us to stick it inside. My pattern paper is 4.75 by 5.75, and then I have this decoupage frame. I'm going to glue the first frame down. The second frame then has foam tape, and the center part has doubled up foam tape, so it gives dimension to this image on the front. You can see here I have a piece of cardstock on the back, but that was just to keep it together while I was getting everything ready. I've die cut out my happy birthday. I've used these dies. They're from the Love from Lizi website. There's 3 sentiment on this, and I use these a lot in my crafting. I think they're brilliant. So make sure you check out links below in the description. So I've die cut out the happy and birthday in the pattern paper, that yellow pattern paper, and then the happy and birthday words I've die cut out on white cardstock. Okay, so now I have our 2 white strips are glued in, and you can see here the one on the left has the notch out on the left, and the one on the right has the notch out on the right. I want to glue these in, and I'm only gluing down this half along here. So on the left down there, and on the right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add our panel. You can see I have the panel in there on the right. We're just going to add our panel in here to the left, and it's going to get stuck on to the other 1/2 inch of that strip that's on the left. And like I said, I do have a tutorial on my channel for this card, so if you'd like to go through it slower, you can pop over. The link is in the description to that video. So I'm adding a little bit of liquid glue there to the left hand side of this panel. I'm going to glue it onto that strip, and now I can add my pattern paper onto that door there, onto the 2 of them, and you can see they join nicely there in the middle. They give us like a gatefold is what we end up with. But if you find one overlaps the other, before you glue it into place, do a little dry run, and you can give it a skim if it needs a little skim off of it. So now we want to glue down our top flap to these. Now you can see there I have folded over our little top pieces, and then I'm folding over the little triangle. Those little triangles are going to get glued to the top flap just up here. So you can see there I had started to put it in, and I realized, oh, I need to wait and record. So take your liquid glue. You can use double-sided tape if you like, but I like to use the liquid glue. So I have folded this piece over and then folded the little triangle down on top of it, and I'll add my little bit of glue to that. And then once I have that glued, I'll then add some glue to the one on the left hand side. So you can see there I have that folded over as well. Add the little bit of glue to this, and then I can close over the top flap on the 2. Now make sure you don't get glue anywhere other than those 2 little triangles. Close it over. I've got these little pegs. I add them on there, and I give it a minute, less than a minute, just for that glue to set, and then I can go ahead and add my little panels to our gatefolds. So I'm going to use my liquid glue, and I'm going to tuck them under and sit them down nicely. Then when we open our two doors, our top flap will lift. So now we can put our top folding little card in. I've got some double-sided tape here. I'm also going to use a little bit of liquid glue, and I'm going to pop that inside. So you can see the doors, when you open the doors, the top flap will lift. Before I add that panel in, I'm actually going to stamp my sentiment now. I'm going to get that done. I'm using a stamping block, and yeah, I find the VersaFine Clair is great for stamping sentiments. It's like your VersaFine Onyx black ink. That is so great when you're stamping sentiments, and the same with the VersaFine Clair, really good. I'm delighted with them. So I have my top folded card inside. I'm delighted with this now. You could embellish the front of the card, but I feel when the card is opened, it's actually viewed, the happy birthday panel is what you'll see when the card is stood up. So a really cool card style. I hope you liked this. Now we're going to move on to card number 3. For card number 3, I'm going to add this piece of 5 3/4 by 5 3/4 pattern paper from the kit to a 6 by 6 card base. And if you want to make one, all you need is a piece of 12 by 6 and score it at 6, or you can buy a ready-made shop bought one. I want to glue this down onto here, and then I'm going to take my nesting dies that I have in my stash. So this little girl here is one of the Decoupage sets, and you can see I have her here all ready to go. And I've also taken these oval nesting dies from my stash. I've put these two together onto some green cardstock, and I've die cut out this frame. I'm going to take the smaller die, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to die cut an opening through our pattern paper and our top piece of our card blank. That way I can then sit my little girl inside, and then she will pop through the card when it's closed, and when it's opened you'll have our little girl inside. So the first thing to do is to stick down our pattern paper. So now I'm going to take my oval and I'm going to center that on my cardstock. And once I have that centered, I'll take a piece of washi tape and I will stick that in place. And then I'll open up my card base, bring it to my die cutting machine and cut that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I have a scalloped edge die that goes well with these dies that I've used. So I've die cut that out. I think my little miss will sit nicer onto this, like so. And then I'll pop that inside. And then when she's set in there, you won't see the green so much. So that's the plan. So you can see there the dimension of our little girl popping out. And I have a sentiment here, make a wish. And I think I'll add that across the bottom like so, but I'm going to put it up on some dimensional. And once I have that on, then I can add some of those beautiful diamond hearts that we got, those gems in the kit. I'm going to add 2 to the top left and 1 down beside the make a wish. I'll add some glossy accents to our little girl, to her eyes and the flowers, her bag, the little butterflies. And I'm also going to stamp some sentiments inside. I'll stamp celebrate and happy birthday. And on the back, I've added a mat and layer with birthday wishes and butterfly kisses. You won't see it now, but you'll see it in the picture, the finished one that I've done there. So that's card number 3. And we're swiftly moving on now to card number 4. For card 4, we're going to make a shaker card, and for this I'm using a 6 by 6 card base. This is a card base I've made myself in this lovely sandy cream colour. I also have two blue panels. These two measure 5¾ by 5¾ One I've left plain, the other I have stenciled. I've just taken a little stencil from my stash and I have stenciled over my panel. I've used some white along the top so it looks like the waves, and then I've used a lighter blue and a darker blue, so you can't really see it on the camera, I don't think, but in real life it looks as if we're going from light blue sea down to the dark blue sea. I've also got a panel here, and this one measures 5½ by 5½, and that is going to sit on this blue panel, and these are going to sit inside. I have another little panel here. This one measures 5 by 3¾ When I die cut out my whale from this piece, I want to have some of what looks like the sea behind it, and my shaker bits will sit on this piece. So you can see here I have my two little whales, and they're just coloured in using my blending brushes. One is a lighter blue than the other, and this has more grey on, just to give them a little bit of personality so they look a little bit different. This is the die, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to die cut out on this panel, and then I'm going to have my other two whales here along with them. So we'll have a shaker whale and a regular whale, and then I'll add a sentiment to this, and it'll be a sentiment from my stash, something kind of funny and punny. And then I'm using the shaker bits that came in the kit. I just love the colours in these, and this is just a sample bag, but I'm going to use this for my little whale shaker element. So let's go ahead now and die cut everything out. So you can see here I have a piece of acetate cut to just cover the opening of our die cut whale, and I'm putting the double-sided tape around the edge of that, and then I'll stick that down to the back of our panel, and I'm making sure that the double-sided tape has really gripped onto the cardstock well. I've taken some foam tape, and you can see there I'm doubling it up, so it'll give us a little bit of dimension to add our sequins, and this is going to make our shaker bits. So I'm going to go all around the outside of the frame, and then I'm going to go around our little whale. And you'll see me use about 2/3 of the sequins, but for a finish I come back, I slit open the foam tape, and I add all the rest of the sequins. I think the full amount of sequins, the full sample bag in this looks really, really well. So now I have my foam tape on there. I'm happy with that. I'm going to add my sequins into it, and then I'm going to take my other little panel that I have done, and I'm going to stick that down on top. And I find this easier when I'm doing a shaker card. I'll take off the release paper on all the rest of the foam tape, and then I'll add some liquid glue to that. Now I'm going to add my panel to the card base, and I like to stand over the panel to try and center it on the card base as best I can. So it's just a matter of gluing down our two little whales now as well. And there is so much sparkle on these whales. I'm looking at the card here. I've added some glossy accents and some Spectrum Noir sparkle pen to them, and I have to say, I love this. I love the pun. I see it's your birthday. I love all the shaker bits in it, and our two lovely little whales on the front, as well as our shaker whale. So I've embellished this panel now to go inside, and for a finish I also take my die cut whale and I stick that down on this panel underneath the sentiment there that says have a fantastic day. I stick him down in there because I didn't want to throw him out, guys. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to add him to the inside. So you can see me here, I'm adding some accent glaze to my card, and it gives them that kind of wet look, and I'll add my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen to it, and I don't do anything else to this card. I love it. I love a shaker card. I don't know why I don't make them more often. often, but this is very pleasing, and it was one my hubby picked out when he came home. He was like, oh, I really like that, it's very cool. So there you go. Now we're moving on to card 5. So now we're swiftly moving on to card number 5, and for this I'm using a 5x7 card base. This is a ready-made shop bought one. If you want to make one yourself, what you'll need is a piece of 10x7 cardstock and then score it at 5 on the 10-inch side. So I have my card base. I also have taken 2 pieces of pink cardstock from my stash. They are both measuring 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. And then I have a white piece and a piece of pattern paper. They measure 4 1/2 by 6 1/2. On the white piece, I have stamped my message. This will go on the inside like so. And then on the outside, I've taken some of the pattern paper. I've taken the stamp Celebrate, and that is from the Love from Lizi Celebrate. This was in the May 2022 card kit. If you're a regular subscriber and watcher, you'll know that Lizi has brought out a thank you, hello, celebrate, with love stamp sets, and they're all available on the Love from Lizi website. So I've used the Celebrate, and what I've done is I have stamped the Celebrate once on each line in a dark color, and I used a dark chocolate brown for that, and then the rest of them I've second generation stamping. So there we go, that is our panel. It's going to sit on our matte layer like so, and then that will go on the front of our card. Now I have some other things here. You can see here I have a bookmark, I have this piece, this and this. So in our pack we get some cut aparts and die cuts, and we get some of this, which is our build up for doing our decoupage. I couldn't think of the word, our decoupage. But in the add-ons you can get that pack plus extra sheets, and in it has bookmarks, other cut aparts, it's got pillow boxes, envelopes, so much more. It's a real filled pack, and I'll leave links to the add-ons down below in the description, so if you click on that you'll have a look and you'll be able to see what comes in the add-ons. So I've taken one of the pillow boxes, and this comes with extra little tabs on it, and I've cut them off because I wanted this to go inside. I'm going to pop this on here, and you can see I have some double-sided tape on 3 sides, the sides and the bottom. I'm going to pop that here like so, and then I'm going to take my bookmark. Now I did take some 300 GSM card stock, and I matted the back of the bookmark on with that. Then I stamped special wishes on your birthday and added a ribbon. This is a ribbon from one of Lizi's previous kits. So I want to be able to slide that in here. And then this cut apart, again, I layered it up with some 300 GSM cardstock, and then I put little magnets on the back. So I've added those little magnets to the 4 corner of this. So our recipient will have a little fridge magnet and a little bookmark inside their card. Now on the outside, I just didn't want to have the Celebrate beautiful pattern paper that we got and made, but I've taken one of these. This is a 3-layer decoupage. So what you do is you pop them off, and I have 2 of them popped off there like so. And what they do is they just come apart like that. And I kept these together so I wouldn't lose them. And then what we do is we glue one down. We have some double-sided tape, foam tape on this side. And then I've doubled up my foam tape on this one. So we'll add them on the front. And then I thought it'd be nice to finish all that off with a little ribbon. And I may just put the ribbon there at the bottom because this will be the highest part. So I may just add the ribbon there like so, or I could add it there. You'll just have to wait and see. But I'll probably put it just down here. So I have assembled my card now. I glue down all my mats and layers and my beautiful little image of my girl relaxing there in the raised frame on the front. Inside you can see I've added the sentiment layers as well as our book a mark, and our little fridge magnet is in there in the little pocket. So that is card number 5. We're going to move on now to card number 6. So for card 6, we're going to make this a really special gatefold card. And you can see here, it's got these 2 little wings on the side and it opens up like so. So it looks kind of like a bridge fold card, but we have no bridge going across. So this is going to fit into a 5x7 envelope. And I have 2 pieces of card to make these. Both of them measure 8.5 by 7, and I have scored at 1 inch and 3.5, and that'll give us our 2 pieces. On the one that's going to sit inside, I cut a sliver, like 1/16 of this edge, and the reason for that is that when you sit it inside the other card, then your 2 gates are going to close nicely against each other. You might find that if you don't take that off, you'll have one that, you know, it just sits, you'll have a little gap down the middle like so. So if you take a little sliver of one on the 5-inch side here, not where we have our score lines, sorry, not off this side, we want to take our little 1/16 of this side. So now to embellish that, we'll need some pattern papers. Before I get to those, I want you to have a look at our lovely decoupage little girl here. So this is all one decoupage, but I made 2 pieces out of it. And you can see here I had to add a little piece of pattern paper because this was our base piece. This would have been like A1, and then this piece here would have been A2. So because the back is gone out of it, I needed to kind of cover that up. So I've just got 2 layers on this piece, and then this one has 3 layers on it. This one is going to go on our belly band, and I'll talk to you about that in a moment. And then this one is going to go inside our card base. So let's have a look at the pattern papers. First of all, I have these 2 strips. They measure 3/4 of an inch by 6 3/4, and they're going to sit on the outside like so, and we only need 2 of those. Then I have 4 pieces of pattern paper. They measure 2¼ by 6 3/4, and we're going to put 2 on the outside, 1 here and 1 here, and then on our open doors we're going to put 1 here and 1 here. Then inside here on this panel, I have this piece. This piece measures 6.5. Actually, it measures 4.5 by 6.5. And this piece measures 4¼ by 6¼ And then we have our decoupage piece here. And I was going to put that there, but I'm going to put my little girl over the front. So I'm going to stamp then a birthday sentiment above that, happy birthday with love, on that. Now, if you didn't want to put your decoupage girl in there, you could just add your pattern paper inside and have your little decoupage girl on your belly band. So this belly band is the length of an A4 sheet of cardstock. It is, oh, I don't have a measurement. It is 1 3/4 wide. And then I have a piece of pattern on paper on this. This is 1.5, and let me just measure it. 1.5 by 9. and it was just an offcut, and the reason I have put it here is so I can wrap this around my card and then my decoupage piece will sit over the top. So let's go ahead now, stamp our sentiments and assemble our card. I've stuck down my pattern paper. I haven't stuck down this white panel. I'm going to glue that down now. I was just gauging where I wanted to put my sending birthday wishes, which is a stamp from my stash, and I've used the With Love, which is one of the Love from Lizi stamps that's available from the website. So I think this card then would be displayed open like that on the mantle or on a shelf. I think that's lovely. So now for the belly band. So with the belly band, we just want to close up our card, and then we're going to wrap this around our card. When adding a belly band to a card that has a little bit of bulk, you want it wrapped around tight enough that it's not going to slip off by itself when you stand it up. But you don't want it so tight that when the person takes it off, if they want to put it back on, that they struggle. So, it's finding a happy medium. It should slide up and down along your card base with no problem. Once I've that glued down using my quick grab glue, I'll then add my 2-layered decoupage piece on top of that, and I'll try and make sure I get that nicely in the middle of the belly band. And that slides on and off nicely on my card. So there we go, that was card number 6, and I do love this collared gatefold card. So for this card, I have all our bits and pieces out and ready. I've die cut out some of the lovely seahorses, and I've done again some of my blending on them. I've also added some little white highlights with a gel pen. Hopefully my camera will pick that up. There we go. I've added some Spectrum Noir Sparkle as well along here, and I've used my blending brushes for the 2 different colors, so I have them in those 3 different colors there. I've die cut out this happy birthday from my stash. I've taken one of the images of this little girl and I have fussy cut her out. When I fussy cut her out, then you can see on the back I took a black brush marker. I happen to have this one. It's the Memento jewel marker, and on this end it's got a brush tip. So when I fussy cut her out, you could see white all along the edge. So to get rid of that, I just went all along the edge of it there with my marker, and then you can see the black there, but when you turn it around this way you don't see the white edge. So always handy to have a little marker to do that with. I've got my little anchor that I die cut out, my wheel from the ship, and my little shell. So I'm going to make a bendy card, and for that I have my pieces here. So I have one piece here of 6 by 6, and we want to score that right down the middle at 3 inches, just like that. So this is our card base. It will go into our envelope flat, and then when we open up our card, when we take it out, we'll then give it a bit of shape like that, so it'll sit like that on our mantelpiece. So on top of that, I want to add my pattern paper. This piece measures 5 3/4 by 5 3/4, and I want to score that as well down the middle. So you can just take the page and turn it over on itself and I just tend to do that with it and put it in, and then you've got it literally scored down the middle. Or you can put it into your scoreboard at 2 7/8 and score down along. So whichever way you want to do is just fine. So that'll sit inside like that, our score lines will match up, and that way then it just makes it easier when you bend the card, that it'll sit nicer. So next I have these two, this piece measures 7 by 2, and I'm going to score this at 1/2 inch on both ends. So I'm just rotating it and scoring it. You can go up at 6.5 and score it there, but whichever you like to do. I have 2 pieces of pattern paper. One is going to fit in here like this. This piece measures 5 3/4 by 1 3/4. And then this piece is the back of our card. It's going to embellish the back of the card. Then I have these two. My white piece measures 5 3/4 by 3.5. And again, I want to score that, and I'm going to score it at 1/2 inch. So at 1/2 inch, rotate it around and score it at 1/2 inch, or you can score it at 1/2 inch and 4 1/4 or 5 1/4. And like I said, my piece of pattern paper then will sit inside that nicely, like so. Okay, so that's all our bits and pieces. The back of the card is where we will write our message, etc. So you can you know, you can stamp that or whatever. I'm going to pop this piece across here like so, and then I'll stamp a sentiment on one side and write the message on the other. I have a little B there, don't mind that, that's just pencil mark. I'll rub that out. Okay, so let's go ahead then and assemble our card. So I'm just adding my piece of pattern paper to the back. I would advise you to stamp your sentiment now and get your stamping done before you move on to the front. Then I'm going to add my large piece of pattern paper to the front, and I'll glue that down, and you can see I'm using the Kalal glue again for that. I'm going to fold over the score lines on this piece and glue this down. Now you can glue the tabs behind the pattern paper, so you could glue this piece in first and then put your pattern paper, that large piece, in after, just sliding them over the tabs. But I think either way is fine. I'm doing this way, it just makes it easier. You'll see me chop and change between the Kalal glue and the Cosmic Shimmer glue that I use, the white glue. I find the Kalal glue great for the pattern paper in this kit because it is a lighter weight paper, and I would just be afraid that using a water-based glue would give you those kind of warped lines, or, you know, that kind of look that you can get with paper. So I'm just really erring on the side of caution, and I'm using the quick grab glue then on our little tabs on this piece. Now this panel, I think if I was to make this card again exactly the same, I would shorten this panel. Rather than having it at 3.5 inches tall, I think I'd go maybe at 2.5 inches tall. That way you'll see the seahorses that I'm going to put on the panel. I do love this card. It's just so cute. But if I was to change one thing, it would be just that. So I have my birthday wishes. I did say it was a happy birthday, but it's birthday wishes, just to be different, you know, mix it up a little bit. I've stuck down my little mermaid, and now I'm adding the other pieces. So I'm going to glue down my anchor underneath her. I'll glue down my little ship's wheel, and I'll add some foam then to my fabulous holographic shell. And then I'm going to add some foam squares behind my seahorses. Now, I originally was going to just put 3, but I didn't think 3 looked right, so I'm adding 4 because I had such fun with the seahorses. I die cut out loads of them and blended them all different colors and the whole lot. So I had some sitting off to the side. So I went with 4 seahorses underneath our birthday wishes, which is behind our little mermaid girl. And then I have a lovely one at the back of the card that I've stuck on. You'll see that later on. I do also take a stamp from my stash. It's like the shoal of fishes, and I will actually embellish the pattern paper with that. I should have done it first, but you know me, yeah, just it's a hindsight thing. I kind of felt that needs a little something, you know, it looks a bit empty there. So here I go with my shoal of fish. The empty space behind the wheel, I figure I might die cut out a name depending on who the card is going to. You know, if it was Mia, then I could die cut out Mia there and fit it in, but depending. Anyway, that is our bendy card, and that's card 7 all done. And I do love this. I love my seahorses. I think the mermaid looks great for just a cut out, cut apart. Yeah, and I think it's lovely, and I think anyone who gets this will be delighted with it. So now we're going to move on to card 8. For this card, I have a 5x7 card base, and that's a piece of 10x7 scored at 5. I also have 2 white panels. One of these panels measures 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. The other one measures 4 1/4 by 6 1/2. This one we're going to do some blending on. You can see I have all my colors out there. And this panel, the larger one, I'm going to die cut out my seahorses 3 times. So I'll have 3 die cut seahorses from this panel, and we're going to be able to see through them to our blended panel below. And then that will give us the look of, you know, seahorses through it. I just think this was, yeah. I had a dream about this card. Is that not mad? So I've die cut out the 3 seahorses. Now all we need to do is add some foam tape to the back of it, which I've done. And I'm going to stamp a sentiment on it. I'll put that panel into my MISTI and stamp my sentiment on it later. So I'm going to go ahead now with our smaller panel, and I'm going to do some ink blending. I'll use my blending brushes for this, and I'm going to start with the lighter blue, go to the darker blue, then to the purples, the pinks, the yellows, and the oranges. So a kind of rainbow colors ish. There's no green in there, but you know, rainbow ish colors. And you can see here, these aren't the best for blending. It does look a bit patchy, but when I put my die cut panel on over it, it looks beautiful, I have to say. I mean, I wasn't really working hard on getting a nicely blended panel. I think I could have done a far better blend, but I think that it looks beautiful in real life, you know. Once this panel goes on top, it looks fab. So because my ink was wet, I just had a bit of computer paper over it pressed down. You see there, I've stamped my sentiment. I know I'm a bit reckless because I had foam tape underneath, but I just did a bit of CPR and it came out perfect, it has to be said. So I'm going to pop that panel down. I'm going to add now some of my little white gel dots along the spine of the seahorse, and then I'll add a little bit of Spectrum Noir along the spine of the seahorse and around where the belly of the seahorse is. Please excuse my head getting in the way. And then I'm going to take a pen from my stash, this is a nice dark blue, and do a couple of dots. These are clusters of 3. I've taken a stamp from my stash and I have inked it up with 2 different colors, and then I've taken a similar colored seahorse and I'm sticking that down at the bottom. And that, folks, is card number 8. Isn't it just gorgeous? It's a lovely clean card, but I love it. This is card number 9. It's an inside explosion card, and I have a card base here which is going to end up as a 5.5 by 5.5 gatefold card base. So my piece altogether, it measures 11 by 5.5. I scored it at 2 3/4 and at 8 1/4. I have two panels. These measure 2.5 by 5 1/4, and they'll sit on there. And I have embellished a lot of this using some peel-offs from my stash. This pattern paper measures 11 by 5.5. Again, I've scored it at 2 3/4 and 8 1/4. I have also this blue panel. It measures 5 by 5. I have a white piece. It's 4 3/4 by 4 3/4. My strip measures 4 3/4 by 3/4 of an inch. I have some peel-offs, a piece of decoupage, and some stamping. This piece here, it measures 3 5/8 by 3 5/8. The white piece is 3 3/8 by 3 3/8. I've done some blending on it. I've stamped a sentiment, and I've a piece of the decoupage to match what's on the back is on the inside. So this piece is layered. I have a strip of A4 white cardstock. It's 11 3/4, and this long strip of pattern paper, it's a 1/2 inch wide, but it's the length of the papers that we got in the kit, so it fits nearly the whole way across. This is a lovely little tag. I've layered it on some 300 GSM cardstock. I've stamped a "Let's Celebrate" sentiment on it, and I'm going to glue down one of the wooden pieces that we got on this piece, and I'm also going to put two of the wooden pieces on the inside of the card. So that's all our pieces there. Now we're going to assemble it, and I'm speeding everything up. So this piece, we're going to score it at 2 3/4. I'm going to rotate it and again score it at 2 3/4 or 8 1/4, depending on what you want. I've marked it there at 5.5 on the top and at 5.5 at the bottom. You can see there I have a little notch there at the top and bottom at 5.5. Now I want to put the top left-hand corner onto my track, and I'm lining it up with my 5.5 mark, which is the center of the pattern paper here, and I'm going to score right down to that. Then I'm going to turn it over, and on the other corner I'm going to pop it into the track, and I'm going to score right down to the 5.5 mark again at the other side. So I'll score down. So I've put an X with score lines there. So I'm going to do the same on the right hand side. At the top on the right hand side, I'm going to score down to the 5.5 inch mark that we made, and the bottom right I'm going to score again to the 5.5 inch mark from that corner. So we have our score lines at 2 3/4 and 8 1/4. We have our score lines which are X'd through it. And now what we're going to do is fold and burnish those score lines. So you can see our X there, and we have another X then on this side. We'll fold them over, and you can see then we have a diamond shape literally in the middle. So we want to pull these little score lines. These are like a mountain fold. So I'm pulling them up, and then I'm folding over the side panel. You can see there, so it's like an arrow shape. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. So I'm going to push them in towards each other. You can see there, I'm pulling those two score lines towards each other and pushing on the back to flatten it down. So it's giving us this diamond shape. So it's so cool. And when you open it up, it just opens up. So now I've jumped forward, I've popped my folded shape into my card base, and it should sit nicely between our two gatefold doors. If there's any little extra there where the gatefold doors are, just trim your left hand side and your right hand side off. I didn't need to trim anything. They fitted in perfect, and when the little gatefold doors are closed, you can't see any of the pattern paper. So now I'm going to put some of my collal glue on the large square in the center, or the diamond, whatever you want to call it, and I'm putting that right inside my panel, right in the middle. And then our gatefold doors will close over, and where our gatefold doors close over onto our pattern paper, we're adding some liquid glue onto those. So they're two triangle shapes there is what we're adding our glue to. So once I have my collal glue on those two triangle shapes, I'll close over the doors and I work on the back. I add my mats and layers to the back, and then I can come back inside then to the inside part and embellish this. So I'm adding my white square that I have done a little bit of ink blending in brown and kind of a sandy brown color to look like sand. I've stamped "Have a fantastic day," and I'm putting them in there. Lovely. And then I have a piece of decoupage. This is 3 layers deep. I'm adding that. She's lounging on her sun towel there. I'll add that into the middle. And then I'm taking the little boat and the anchor wooden pieces that we got, and I'm going to glue them inside as well. I have my glue gun on heating, and while that's heating, I'm wrapping my belly band around the card base. So there's a bit of bulk there. I want to make sure my belly band sits on nicely, giving me enough room to slide it up and down, but not that it's going to fall off. Then I'm going to add my tag at a jaunty angle onto that. So I'm just gluing it onto the belly band strip, and then that'll be able to slide off nicely off our card base. Perfect. So I'll add a bit of pressure, allow that glue to set, and then we can work on the inside. I have a little piece of candle wax that I'm rubbing along the outside there, and I find it just helps my little belly band to slide up and down. So that's a neat little trick for you. Sam from Mixed Up Craft gave us that hint when using kinetic cards, and I found it worked a treat there on the edges of my card base. So now my belly band is off. I'm going to use some hot glue because that's what I prefer to use with my little wooden pieces. I'm going to put the boat and the anchor in there. And there you go. That is card number 9, and I absolutely love it. I know these are there's a lot of these cards being made out there, but I thought this was a cool size, 5.5 by 5.5 when it's closed. Great. There you go. So now we're going to move on to our final card, and this is card 10, and it's a DL size dome card. And we're finally at card 10, and like I said, this is a dome card. So I have a piece of 4 by 8.25. If you're making it yourself, you'll need a piece of 8 by 8.25 scored at 4. So onto this piece we need our card, and this piece measures 5.5 by 8.25. I've scored it at 1/2 and at 5. I'm going to fold in these sides. There are tabs, and it's going to stick to the front of our card like so. You can see on my panel I've peel-offs here, but I would recommend that you put them on after you die cut out your oval, because we want to put an opening on this. So I'm going to do that. I would recommend you do that afterwards. So I want to die cut out my oval. I've used some nested dies, and I've die cut it out in this cream cardstock. I have a nice thin frame that I'm going to put on the front of our panel like so. I'll take the smaller of the 2 dies, and I will die cut out my opening onto my sandy colored cardstock. So I'm going to gently pull off my washi tape so I can reuse it. This is a low tack tape, so it makes it very handy. So I'll add a little bit of washi tape to my die. I'll sit that in between my score lines or my peel-offs, and I'll pop that then through my die cutting machine. So I've die cut out my opening. I want to add that to the front of my card. Once I have that on, then I will add my star pattern paper. I find that's the easiest way to do it, to put this on first, glue this in place, then add some liquid glue onto this panel and slide it in there and into place. Now my pattern paper is a little bit short, and I will rectify that, and I'll show you that at the end, but I've given you the correct length in the measurements at the beginning. So inside my card, I have this strip here. It's a 1/2 inch by 8 inches in length. I've stamped my sentiment and I fussy cut out one of the little girls here with her rainbow paintbrush. She's painting the sky in rainbow colors. So I've die cut her out, and I've die cut out some other pieces as well. You can see them here. I have the little rainbow horse, my little girl with the balloon, and then this other little girl, she's smaller than the one that's inside. So the balloon, I found another one of the little balloons on one of the sheets, and I have that with a bit of dimension to it. I've foam tape on these two pieces, and the other little girl, this one here, she's going to be attached to the frame on the inside of the dome. So they're all the pieces, other than I have also got a stamped Make a Wish. This is a stamp from my stash. I stamped that down and fussy cut it out. I'll either put it astride the frame or underneath it, and for a finish I will put it underneath. I've one of the ready-made bows, and that's going to sit at the top of our frame. I'll embellish the front of the dome with these beautiful little stars. I'll use my hot glue to stick them in place because there isn't any adhesive on them. So that's all the bits and pieces there. Let's go ahead now and assemble our card. I'm going to add some liquid quick grab glue to my little tabs at the side and glue them in place. So once I've that one done, then I can glue this one down. I figure it would be the easiest way to add in our pattern paper, and you can see on my pattern paper I put some peel offs on the edge of it, but you don't see them, so I would, you don't need to waste them on that. I wouldn't bother. You could put the frame onto our domed panel before you glue the dome panel down. I find it just as easy to put the frame on when it's in a dome shape, so really it's up to you, whichever you feel easiest to do. So once I've that done, then I will add on my little frame around there, and you'll have seen me chop and change between my Cosmic Shimmer glue and my Collal glue. I find the Cosmic is great for a quick grab, and then the Collal is great for the bigger pieces when I'm putting down pattern paper. So I'm going to decide where I want all my bits and pieces to go, and once I'm happy with my little girl, I'm going to glue her on there so she's sitting inside the frame and her paintbrush is on the outside of the frame. I'll then put my little girl with the balloon and the cloud, and then I'll put my little girl on her colourful rainbow pony. Now I do put her up too high, and I'll end up taking this off and resituating her. So make sure, if you're copying this card or you're putting things inside your dome, make sure that when the card is in its stood up position, that things aren't too high or too low. So now I'm going to add our Make a Wish sentiment. I've popped some foam tape behind them, and then I'll add that to the dome front there. And once that's in place, then I can add my little stars. And I've put some hot glue on my bow. I find, for me, I like to use the hot glue. There's no fear it's going to come off. For my stars, I was going to use the Cosmic Shimmer glue, but I'm going with my hot glue. And you can see there I have lovely little glue pins in my glue bottles. I have 2 YouTube tutorials on my channel for those if you're interested in making your own. If you'd rather just purchase them, I do have an Etsy page where I sell my glue pins. So there'd be links down below if you're interested in buying a cute little glue pin for your glue bottles from me, and I ship worldwide. And like I said throughout the video, there will be links to Lizi's website, to the subscription, to the add-ons. You can purchase lots of crafty goodies from Lizi's website, not just card kits. So I would recommend you go there and have a look. So I'm sharing with you now all 10 cards that we have made together. If you liked my video, I hope you'll give it a thumbs up. If you're a subscriber, thanks for subscribing. And if not, you might click on the subscribe button down below. You'll also be given options if you can select the bell icon icon, that way that you'll be notified each time that I post a new video. And as well as that, the YouTube the algorithm, it also helps my channel every time you do that. So that's it. I'm leaving you now with images of the 10 cards we've made. I hope you have a fantastic week, and until next time, take care, stay safe, and bye for now.